Okay, so I apologize beforehand for the bad camera quality. First video ever, but I figured it'd be easier than taking a buttload of pictures. Um, Recently, Apex, the owners of Gear Inch and Crescent, and the people who ruined Armstrong and Allen, have put SATA, one of their brands, European brand of mechanics tools, on Amazon. They're just rebranded Gear Inch. Although if you ever wanted a 72 tooth Gear Inch ratchet like the old ones, you can get those through them. And I know Gear Inch doesn't sell those anymore. All it is the 84 and the 120. But I bought the cheapest wrench set they had, the smallest one, $11. Um, and for the price, they're not bad. Um, all my wrenches are mismatched, USA, German, and some other brands and things I've gotten from flea market stuff over the years to avoid buying Pittsburgh tools. Not that if you buy Pittsburgh, that's a terrible thing. I just like US stuff, even though they're old. So, 8. Well, first we'll look at the ends. If I can get it to focus. There are some pretty bad errors. I don't know if you guys can see that, but that whole edge right here is flat. There's several of the wrenches like that. The 10 millimeter is like that. One side of the head right here is flat, whereas the other side is nice and round like a normal wrench. Um, on the open ends, I haven't noticed any bad flaws or anything wrong with the chrome. Just on the boxed end, some of the corners and things are not. Here's the 15. This one seems alright, but it's real thin right over here on this edge and way thicker over here. It's like when they broach this hole out, or however they make the end of the open end, it did it off center and it looks like crap. Overall, the wrenches aren't too bad, just the open ends kind of suck. Length is pretty good. I've got a Craftsman USA 8 millimeter, an Eastco 10 millimeter, a Williams Vulcan 12 millimeter. I've got two 13s, a Napa USA, old Napa. And then I have a German Gador in 13, and then I have a USAG Italy. I don't know if you can get these in the US. I got them from a European guy that came over here. I think they're also a Stanley Black & Decker company, just like Facom or Proto or Mac. So you might be able to get these over here through them. But in the comparison, we'll do 8 millimeter to the 8 millimeter Craftsman. Obviously, they're way longer. They've got the kind of that crab claw looking thing going on up here. There's a ton of meat behind the open end. And then, yeah, you can see it a little easier right here. That big old flat chunk looks like it's been taken out of the top of the 8 on the open end. It's just not pretty. You can tell the Craftsman is much thinner on like the walls. However, the SATA is thinner on the beam, cross section wise. And then, yeah, of course, the raised panel is going to be fat from the side as well. Really, if they weren't just so ugly because of that, I'd say they're great wrenches. They are made in China, and I mean, for $11, I mean, you can't argue too much. But here's our 10 millimeter against the Eastco. The length on these is great. I know these are not like Snap-on or Mac USA wrenches. These are all industrial or DIY USA brands, but the length is great on the SATAs. I do like how long they are. And they were not advertised, if I remember correctly, as being long pattern. But the 10 millimeter doesn't have too many issues. I think it does have a little bit of an off-centered hole And then you can look at the ESCO. The ESCO is perfectly centered. It's made in the USA, of course. And it's a nicer wrench, but the SATAs aren't terrible. If we go to 12 millimeter versus the Williams is longer. I love these Williams Vulcan wrenches. I don't have a full set. I've just got a few. And they're awesome. I wish they still made them, but they don't. Oh well. 12 mil is not bad. There's really nothing wrong I can see with the 12 mil. It's a little shorter than the Williams, but this is a more professional tool, I guess. Jump on over to the 13. Stick it in between our two 13s here. So the Napa is shorter. I do love this Napa wrench. It seems the jaws especially don't spread nearly as much as like the Craftsman's, and from older people I've talked to, because I of course did not buy these or the Craftsman's new, the Napas were made much better, and back then they were more expensive, but not by too much over the Craftsman's, from my understanding. Again, I don't know what the pricing was when these were made, but I do really like the Napa. It is shorter than the SATA. However, the boxed in and the open in are nicer. The 13 doesn't seem to have too much of the crab claw-like look to it, but the Napa is much smaller in profile, and you can tell the 13 you'll be able to get that in a tighter area. If we look back at the 8 and the 10, they're super thick here behind the open end. The 12 is not that bad, and the 13 isn't terrible either. If we look at the 13 compared to the Gador actually has quite a bit of meat back here. But these are amazing wrenches. I've used these in place of line wrenches where I didn't have the right size line wrench. I know that's not right, but you know, when you've got no brakes and you've got one vehicle, you've got to use something to get your brake lines loose. I do like the Gadors because they're offset like this. Makes it really handy in certain situations. And I did not buy these new either, but they're amazing wrenches, and I will probably be buying a newer set soon. And then if we look at the 14 with the USAG, it is of course longer. This is actually the only USAG wrench I have. I don't have any others. I have a couple Facom, however you say that. I know those are Stanley Black & Decker as well, and I have a few Protos in smaller sizes, but this is the only USAG I have. And the SATA's a lot longer. This one doesn't seem super crab-like, but it does have quite a bit of meat behind the open end. And the boxed in on this one is not off-centered or anything, and it does seem very clean. It seems like the smaller sizes are the worst. The 10 and the 12, or the 8 and the 10, I apologize. 8 and the 10 being the worst. I don't know if you all can see that right there. That's just, it's just so ugly. But for 11 bucks, I mean, hey. And then here's the 15. I neglected to grab a 15, and now my whole family is asleep. But the 15 seems pretty okay. It's not terrible, but again, I think it is off-centered a little bit. It's a little thinner over here than it is over here. Other than that, across all the wrenches, there is no defects or anything I can find. I mean, really, they're identical to gear wrench. If you have gear wrench wrenches, they're identical. They're just SATA instead of gear wrench. I mean, like the font for the numbers is exactly the same as the gear wrenches. Are these a better deal than the gear wrenches? Sort of. Right now, they're all on sale on Amazon. They have special pricing. And hey, for 11 bucks or whatever the pricing is on some of the bigger sets, they're not bad. I know they don't have flex heads or anything in this in the SATA brand yet on Amazon, but if you want to get the regular non-flex head, regular length 120XP ratchets, the SATA ones are quite a bit cheaper than the gear wrench ones right now. So that might be something worth looking into, especially if you don't have any of the, if you've wanted to try the 120XPs and you're like, well, I haven't wanted to spend the money. The SATAs are quite a bit cheaper at the moment. And if you want a cheap wrench set and you don't care about little cosmetic things like that, which that might be a weak point. You never know how much torque you're going to put on an 8mm though. Not a lot. But I hope my video wasn't too terrible, and this is probably a pretty crappy comparison. None of these wrenches are new or in production anymore, other than the Gador. Maybe the USAG, I have no clue. I think the Gador is the only wrench here that you'd be able to buy new anymore. But I hope it gives a clue as to the quality of the SATA wrenches. I know gear wrench quality as a whole has gone down lately. The YouTube channel Tool Time did a video on his larger gear wrench ratcheting wrenches just falling apart right out of the packaging. I have a Husky set that are made by Apex, and I love them. They're non-reversible, but it only goes up to, I think, at 19 or 21mm. So I have no experience with the larger sizes. All my larger wrenches are fixed, non-ratcheting, but I'll do some work with these. You know, maybe do a couple oil changes, maybe use the 8mm on some brake bleeder screws or something, and see if they're any good. I highly doubt they're going to be functionally different than most any other wrenches, but I am a stickler for USA and European tools. I have a few Taiwanese tools as well. I try to avoid the Chinese stuff, and these are Chinese, but they don't seem that bad. And like I said, for 11 bucks, there's not a lot you can say about, what do we got? 6 wrenches for 11 bucks. That's less than the $2 a wrench. You can't buy a single wrench for that cost. I mean, a single wrench is $11 from even the Chinese brands or the Taiwanese brands on Amazon or whatever website you want to buy from. So I don't know, give them a look if you want. I honestly think they're just rebranded gear wrench, and I'm probably not going to buy any more SATA tools. But if it works for you, it works for you. Y'all have a good one.